Oh, gnarly, dude. Looks like you just went overboard.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to this week's episode of Overboard. I'm your host, Jenny.
And I'm Anthony.
And today we have a very special guest coming with us, and it's Hannah Swain.
Hi, everybody. It's nice to be here. I feel very lucky to be here.
So Hannah recently, well, you were supposed to graduate, which was something that we were going to talk about today. But your plans were kind of taken from you from the pandemic. So tell us a little bit about that and what it was like almost graduating because of the pandemic and what you have to do now that it's
Absolutely. So yeah, I know it threw everybody for a whirl. I mean, nobody was really prepared for a global pandemic, but I think us in college, especially us seniors, were really surprised by it because you're already concerned about joining the job market and the industry that you're pursuing. And now there's this whole other barrier you kind of have to cross over. So I was projected to graduate from Grand Valley this previous April. So I was going to graduate with a major in multimedia journalism, and then I was double minoring in writing and sociology.
Jeez.
And thank you. A lot of interests. That kind of whole spew of words means that I really want to work for National Geographic. That's kind of my dream job, or do some kind of nonprofit work with writing, video, audio, those kind of things. But I was projected to graduate in April of 2020, and this pandemic happened. And in the midst of my graduation, I was going to Africa this previous summer for an international internship that I had been granted, which I was so excited about. I was going to work for a nonprofit down in Cape Town, South Africa, that was fighting for democracy. They still have a lot of corrupt leadership down there, so basically, we were getting sent down there to interview locals and kind of get an understanding of how adequate democracy would affect them and like why it was so important. So once this pandemic happened, that was my immediate freak out. I'm like, there's no way my school's going to let me travel
what am I gonna do?
Across the world to go do this awesome opportunity. But with that internship, I was also getting a class credit. So I was getting 3 credits towards my writing minor. So this previous semester, which I had assumed to be my last semester in college,
right,
I actually took it kind of easy with my classes and the workload because I had this summer that I knew was coming up. Mm-hmm. So when this pandemic hit, my trip got canceled.
Oof.
And that immediately kind of sent me into a whirlwind because I didn't have the correct requirements to graduate as of then. So then it was a last minute scramble of, do I try to find something to cover this throughout the summer and make the April graduation, or do I go an extra semester to school? And we didn't really know what was going on. And at this point, our classes were still being held. So about 2 days later is when they finally put all of the college students online after my trip got canceled. And that kind of made it clear to me that there probably wasn't going to be a lot of opportunities this summer. It was getting way worse than we ever expected it to. I wish we would have been a little bit more prepared, but unfortunately there wasn't much we could do to prepare for something like this. So then this summer has turned into scrambling to find a fall 2020 internship along with taking classes, but unfortunately a lot of people are not trying to take any extras that they don't have to.
Yeah.
So it's been an interesting but very difficult time, I suppose, because not only am I I'm trying to get into the job force, but I'm trying to get into a position where it's not absolutely necessary. So it's been really interesting, but I'm trying to be positive about it and look at the blessings. I get to go into a classroom one more time. I get to go do a lot of things that I didn't realize were going to be the last time doing it. So
yeah,
I got to be pretty grateful for that.
How long were you supposed to be in Cape Town for?
So I was going to be in Cape Town for only about a month and a half, but the month prior to leaving for Cape Town, I was going to be taking a class at Grand Valley that kind of assigned us to the nonprofit we were going to be working for, start doing research on the culture and what they deemed appropriate, which I really hold high in value, because I think a lot of times, like, it's not necessarily college students, but a lot of people go to these other places around the world with this instinct that they want to, like, help them. But a lot of times we come in there and we kind of seem that we, like, know better than they do on how to help them. And my program was super, not against it, but they were really awesome about making sure that we were, like, competent on what the culture and society looked like there, so we weren't disrespectful or, like, overstepping any boundaries. So that was really awesome that Grand Valley offered something like that.
Yeah. Are a lot of your classes that you're taking, are these last couple of years been very focused on more journalism or more video, or both?
So it's a mix, right? It's crazy. Luckily with my major is defined as multimedia journalism. So we always like to call ourselves, like, the jack of all trades. Like, we don't have a specific thing that we're absolutely awesome at, but we're trained and good at just about everything. So with my coursework, it looks a lot like doing audio, doing video, doing print media, and then kind of making sure that we have an understanding for all the basics of it. And then you kind of get to pave your way with the classes you take through our major to see what you specialize in. Luckily, I had also got an opportunity to do an independent study with one of our professors to focus on photojournalism, because we don't have any coursework that aligns well with that. So I did that this previous semester, which was also pretty difficult to work through with the pandemic.
Yeah.
But I think it opened a lot of doors for our major and opportunities for people who don't get to express the photo aspect of journalism, which is totally huge.
Is there a specific subset of, or, like, category, I guess, that you prefer to be doing? Like, do you prefer the writing more than the video, or the video more than the writing?
If you would have asked me that question 2 years ago, I would have instantly said, I have no interest in anything but writing. I was fully set on just being a print media. I really wanted to work for, like, a magazine that was more my style. But as I got the training and I kind of got the hook of a lot of things, I am unfortunately attracted to them all, which is a blessing and a curse, because I love doing all of them. I just can't see myself dedicating to one thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense.
I love them all, and it's a shame that I don't get to, like, have that passion for one of them, but also I really enjoy doing all of the aspects that I do. If I had to rank them, writing is still probably number one, just because I feel the most comfortable and the most confident in it. I've also gotten training through my minor in writing as well through it, so I feel more strong in that component. But radio lately has really been my jam. Like, I just really enjoy the music aspect, the news aspect, the personality. Like, it's just a nice combination where it's not too formal, not too informal. It still feels meaningful, but I can put my personality on there.
Yeah.
I do really enjoy video, and I think that's where I, like, definitely am highlighted in my major. I think that's where my professors see my most potential, but I just am not sure if news style video is for me. It's a little too cliche, I suppose. I don't get to be as creative as I would like to be. So if I could do, like, documentary style, like, that would be perfect. But unfortunately, it's mostly, like, reporting. And I just don't really enjoy that as much as I thought I would.
Yeah. Do you think that the classes that you took in high school prepared you for these classes that you're taking in college? Like, being in yearbook and all of that stuff?
I definitely think so. And I was going to say later that I think it definitely kind of drew me to journalism, being a part of yearbook. So when I first joined the yearbook in high school, I was only a sophomore, and I just was like, here's a writing opportunity that I'd really like to get into. And then I kind of started understanding the storytelling aspect, the impact it had, the history making of it. Like, I really like documenting things. I'm a journaler. I do bullet journaling every single day just because I think there's meaning in documenting what happens in your life. And I think that kind of brought me to then the lifestyles editor of the yearbook, and eventually getting the opportunity to be the editor-in-chief kind of solidified that I liked being in control of something like that.
Right.
But also made me realize that I'm definitely like a entertainment arts lifestyle journalist versus something like a political, an investigative. Like, yeah. I really enjoy the soft, warmy feelings that people get when they read something. So that's kind of where it all branched off of. But I didn't know I wanted to be a journalist when I was in yearbook. I thought that was the end of my journalist phase. But as I phased into college, I just felt myself more and more drawn to it. And I saw the opportunities I could take with it. So it kind of led me there.
Did you ever switch majors? Like when you were going to college, did you go for this specific degree that you're at right now?
So I actually went to college as an undecided major. And then I declared my major as writing. And I started taking a lot of writing classes. And it wasn't that I didn't enjoy them, but they were made for people that wanted to be authors. And I never saw myself as an author. I saw myself more, and if it was, it would be more like nonfiction based, where I would write a lot about like historical events or maybe biographies. I knew it wasn't for me, but I liked the creative side of writing because journalism seems to have this stigma that it's so strict and fact oriented and that there's no room to be expressive. So I was really terrified of it. And that's why I kind of stuck with writing. And then I talked to one of our advisors at Grand Valley, and they kind of opened that door for me and made me realize that there was a lot I could do within the journalism industry to be creative. Right. And so that's why writing kind of became my minor, as well as sociology. Those two kind of, I paved my minors as like cultural awareness and cultural understanding. Because I do want to be a journalist that travels and comes in contact with other people, I really needed to learn how to be in those kind of situations and understand that a world exists outside of the United States. Yeah. And I didn't really get any of that anywhere else, you know? Like, we all think that, or we're all aware that there's more in the world, but there's so many intricate little things that we're ingrained to that we don't see in ourselves that are the same way in other cultures that mean just as much. But it kind of taught me how to be in those situations and learn a lot from other people from other backgrounds.
Right. So you said that your goal was to work for National Geographic. Do you ever see yourself maybe starting your own publication that's something like that? Or do you like the fact that you would be kind of like a freelance worker, I guess, among like making news for them?
I definitely think National Geographic is like my big time dream goal. Like, I'm a little kid and this is, if I could pick anything in the world, this is my number one. And I've been saying that for a long time, and I think that's always going to be kind of my guiding light as to where I would love to end up. But in the same breath, I know how rigorous it is to get in that position, and it motivates me, but it also makes me be a little more realistic on what I want to do. So, I definitely would say that National Geographic is my big-time dream job, but I'm also not afraid to explore other options. I've done a lot of volunteer work in the past couple of years through college that has kind of introduced me to the nonprofit industry, and I sincerely love working in that kind of structure, and it's kind of made my life a little confusing for me because of how much I love it. And it's definitely a point at which I need to I like to highlight what I can take from journalism and bring into the nonprofit industry. So if I could make my own publication or even my own nonprofit someday that kind of highlighted the things that I want to do for National Geographic, because I really like what National Geographic does. I love the animal aspect, but it definitely is more science-based. It's much more scientists that are accumulated to being journalists coming to report, and that's not really my background. I really like societal viewpoints and societal stories, so my like top specific where I would like to be in 20 years is I would like to be embedded in an African tribe reporting on the societal habits and their norms and their customs, and really digging deep and understanding a culture from that extent is like what I would really like to do, and do research and further like investigation and comparison into like what our daily lives are like. So if I could make a nonprofit or a publication that does that, that would be the best thing that could ever happen to me.
That'd be so fun too. And I feel like just so many people because we are, I don't know how to put this. So other countries, I feel like they're more prone to traveling the world, whereas I feel like a lot of people in the US are so comfortable with just staying in the US and never experiencing anything from anywhere else. And so I think that like the fact that you want to do that and it's a way to share it with people within the US and hopefully how other countries operate and want to travel comes to the US more.
I definitely agree. And I think I've wrote a lot of like op-eds which are like kind of like opinionated pieces that journalists do, but it's very factual and research based. So I've done a few on over tourism and the style of tourism that we do. It's very capitalistic. It's very commercialized. So I hope I can help be a part of kind of destructuring that and making people realize that there's way more to travel than just seeing these big places that you have to pay a bunch of money for. There's normal life going on, which what I find more interesting than something like that. So I hope that I can be part of that too.
Yeah, like I definitely feel like when Americans or, people from the United States, when we travel, we just go
to the landmarks
for a good time. Like we are not really there to try and understand the culture, the other different cultures around us. We just want to go to the cool tourist traps, go see, Big Ben and the Eiffel Tower and
which is totally fine. I'm like all about if that's what you want to do. But I think my problem is people that do that and try to like pose for it being culture based or learning so much.
And it's not.
Yeah. And I just think that's taking advantage of those places and those people and trying to make yourself feel better about yourself versus actually learning what's going on there.
Right.
Definitely.
So going back to your college experience, you were doing West Side Stories for the news channel at GVSU. What was that all about?
So that was an awesome opportunity that I did not ever think I was going to get in my major, in my college experience in general. Like I said earlier, I was really drawn to the writing aspect of journalism. That was totally what I wanted to do. But as I started getting my training, my professors had realized that there was other aspects that I could potentially be a good fit for. And video was one of them. Mm-hmm. While I liked making my videos, I liked editing my videos, I was always very much doing what we call soft stories, which are basically like human lifestyles, their entertainment, the things that I was explaining that I really liked. And my professors saw how well I was doing in those categories and really wanted to see me try to do hard news, which is more breaking news, political news, controversy, those kind of aspects. So I was making my way through my major, and at the end, you kind of get an opportunity to be invited to this class, and it's called West Side Stories. And you have to be invited by one of our professors and the producer at WGVU, which is our local news station in Grand Rapids. Mm-hmm. So they basically watch you since the beginning of your training and see what components you're going to be able to bring, and if you have the personality to be on camera, if you're going to be able to produce what we did, which I'll kind of explain later, the workload that it was.
Right.
So once I got asked about it, I was totally shook because I did not expect it. I thought highly of myself, like I was proud of my work, but I never expected my professor or these producers to think that I'd be a good fit for this news coverage, just because I think I have too much of a bubbly personality sometimes for situations like that. So I was like, you guys want me? Like, what if I swear on camera? I'm like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
So when they asked me, I was like, I need to think about it. I think this is a great opportunity. I just need to make sure like that I have everything else aligned. And this is when I was waiting to hear back if I was getting into my Africa trip. I was also planning a lot more things coming for my senior year. And I just was up in the air about a lot of things. Luckily, my professor was very, I don't want to use the word convincing because it didn't take that much convincing, but he was very hopeful in me and brought a lot of motivation to what I could bring to this group. And what we would do is we would travel to WGVU's station so that we could A, take our class there and start understanding what was expected of us, and then B, eventually produce our own shows. So it started off by understanding what was expected of us. And in a matter of 2 weeks, we didn't have any crew or anything like that. So we were the reporter, the cameraman, the script writer. We had to complete this segment all by ourselves, which was really eye-opening for what reporters do. And I have a whole new level of respect for how quickly they do it and how like professionally they make these new segments. I can't imagine doing something live. I think that would literally I have no idea how
so
people
much
do
pressure,
that.
yeah.
I take like 4 takes. I'm like, sorry, I needed a few tries. But so every 2 weeks we would get assigned a story, and you had to pitch your story, and you had to come up with reasons why you thought it was important. And then we would have news meetings discussing who was going to get what, if it was needed to be a partnered story where 2 reporters would go on it because it was so big or so in depth. And in that time, you had to record your interviews, fact check your sources, do all of the basics of ensuring that what you're presenting is reliable.
Right.
And then you also had to edit, do a voice track in a matter of a week and a half. And then you would slowly but surely start turning in your work to our producer and our classmates. And for 4 days straight, you would keep returning in the same piece of work with minor edits that they would recommend. So you had 24 hours to fix anything that they said. And then you would turn it in again and another 24 hours until it was ready for production.
Oh, wow.
And it was way scarier than I thought it was going to be, because in classrooms, if you mess up on a project and need an extra day, if you're a good student and you are honest and it's real, your professors are going to more than likely give you that extra extension.
Right.
But for this, they're like, it's showbiz. Like, you need to have it. There's no excuses. There's no next week.
The deadline's the deadline.
Yeah,
Right.
and it was definitely, like I said, an eye-opening experience of what the real world is like for reporters and how pressured it is and how inconsistent it is to find people and a story within 2 weeks and make something of it by the end of it. Just, it was a lot. And all these reporters on TV that you normally see do it in a matter of a day. So kudos to them. I totally respect it. But like I said, it was a really good learning opportunity, and it felt really good to see yourself on TV and your work on TV, and people started treating me not like a student, but they started treating me like a professional. Yeah. Which was the first time that had happened. And just working under WGVU gave me that title that said, I work at an actual location. I'm not just a student making projects. I now have their logo attached to me, which also then meant I needed to up my quality of work. I needed to make sure it was worth putting on live TV. Or not live TV, excuse me, but just putting on TV in general. Right. And then it was really awesome because WGVU would give us their sets, like their TV setup and everything for the anchors to do as well. So a lot of my my fellow students got to be anchors, and we got to use the cameras, and we were trained for audio, and we got to run the teleprompter. Like, WGVU really just opened a lot of doors for us, and it's all because of our professor and producer, James Ford. He was the one that had been training us since the beginning of our video introduction and been watching what kind of journalists we were going to be able to bring to this. And he's just really set up an awesome structure for students that want to continue their time in broadcast news. And I know a lot of alumni that have gone further into reporting solely because of this position. So it was definitely an awesome opportunity. And it although it made me realize that I don't want to do broadcast news, I'm just not made for the
No, that's like the worst.
Yeah.
I don't know
I'm
how
like,
people do it.
I can't do it. I can't. And it's very investigative, like I was saying. Like, I can't dig up dirt on people. It's just not. It's not my thing. I don't have the patience for it. I'd rather look up scientific research. Like, that's more where I kind of stray. So, although it wasn't for me, it was for a lot of people that got opportunities that they could have never dreamed of if they hadn't taken this one.
Right. definitely would say the news industry is like very demanding. Especially, I remember in high school, I did halftime at the actual high school and then half at Genesee Career Institute, and we had a newscast kind of, and we had to enter into a competition for it and like come up with like what you were saying, the whole story, and we had like an actual studio and then like a separate like soundboard room where you had to operate, and then we went through like everybody had to do each position, and I did not like it at all. I was like, this is not me. I don't like this type of filmmaking. And it's, too much.
It's overwhelming. It's not genuine. I think that's what my biggest fall is that it's not genuine, and I can't take my time to make sure that I love it as much as I possibly can.
Yeah, because it's so fast paced.
Like, I remember in high school when I was running the newscast, like that just killed my love for broadcasting so much.
And you guys had great, like, I wish I would have joined I don't want Mrs. Bunka to hear this. Mrs. Bunka, I'm not saying this, but I wish I would have maybe done the newscast too, because I think it was a good introduction and it made you realize that it's probably not for you.
Yeah.
Like, it was fun. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I loved video production and like all aspects of it. And like, I was a producer for the newscast. So we also like ran the district channel and everything. And it was just like you said, like everything's on a deadline. That's how it was. And even more, like the thing that killed me about it is we would have to take the scripts and then let Mr. Suchowski, the principal, he had to approve our scripts for everything. And then not only would he wouldn't like send them back to us for us to edit if he didn't like something. He would edit them himself because he used to be an English teacher. And oh my God, like it was just so aggravating, right? Because we'd have like a lot of like really quality content, like really good quality writing, stuff that's funny, like that like a lot of people would find entertaining. And he would be like, no, that's inappropriate, or I don't like that. That's not like something I want broadcasting in my school.
Normal speech and it's broadcast writing is so different than just writing down a story or writing down an essay. There's certain ways you have to write. There are certain words you have to use. You can't make it complicated. People have to understand you. You have to speak quickly, but you have to be expansive. So for him to think that he like
can write it
knows, just because he was an English teacher, like that sounds so Mr. Suchowski.
Right, like no, exactly. Like he would like make all these grammatical. I'm like, nobody actually talks like that. That's not how. We're not. It would be different if someone was reading.
Yeah, exactly. It's conversational speaking. You have to have people listen to you, and if you're talking like you're reading out of a book, nobody's going to listen to you.
Yeah, exactly. And I get it, but I can just imagine being at like it made me imagine being at working for like a big news company, right? And then having like an editor or somebody come back and just say like, no, like this is not what we want you to say at all.
Completely redo it. You have 24 hours. That's
right.
That's the scariness
how
of it.
Is it personalized to you, right? If like somebody's telling you need to make these certain changes, that's where it loses that like that genuineness, the realness that kind of attracts people to journalism and storytelling.
I do think that doing this opportunity really strengthened my constructive criticism,
Yeah.
Definitely.
Especially giving and taking. I always kind of I never took it to heart because I knew it's part of getting better. I was totally open to criticism and I needed it and wanted it. But I always kind of took it to heart, It was kind of like, this is my work and you don't know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. So being in a position like that made me quickly understand that I can't feel that way. I don't have time to feel that way.
Right.
I need to fix what my producer wants so that we can air this in a matter of 2 days. And it also, I think it helped me give constructive criticism better, as in understanding that you can be positive, but also like suggest something and it's not terrible.
Right.
You don't have to just like everything that everybody produces.
Right.
You can input what you think would make it better. And in the end, what you're doing is just trying to help them be a better journalist. And a lot of times I didn't know that before. And now it feels much more compelling to get feedback back. I'm way more excited about making those corrections because I'm like, they just want me to be better. And like, they know what they're talking about. I respect it and I value it and I appreciate it a lot. So I think that definitely expanded that for me.
And I think that having a professor that you really trust and that makes learning fun and also makes, you know, the criticism fun, where it's not like just blatantly like trashing your work and they actually give you constructive, like good constructive criticism. And I think that was like a big difference from high school to college for me, at least, is my college professor. Like, he gave you criticism, but like you knew what he was saying was real, like what was industry standard information, and like you could trust what he was saying.
Right.
Absolutely.
The last job I worked for, when I worked for Zingerman's, I got recommended to join like this writing group. And one of the coolest things we did was when we'd bring our pieces in and have everybody read, you know, what we wrote, for constructive criticism was, it was just like a what if kind of
like what if
feedback.
You did this?
Yeah. And you would never say the name, but like, what if you described what the flowers looked like or what the smell of the room was, you know, to like, and it was never like, you weren't allowed to say the person's name. Like, what if, you know, like Hannah wrote this, instead you was just like, what if we got a little bit more description on what the atmosphere of the room was like. Right. And that, I thought that was fun because it like, nobody likes having that being criticized for their work, or like,
especially in front of people too. Like you get a little more nervous.
It's very uncomfortable to like receive feedback, especially in front of people. And that kind of like made it, doing the what if in that style, like it even like made me think differently, because then it was fun. It made me, every time I write something now, I ask myself those questions before I turn in like a final draft of something.
I think that's genius.
It's good.
I love that.
It's fun.
I did. I got an opportunity my sophomore year of college to work at the Writing Center at Grand Valley, which is a really interesting setup that they have. It's a mixture of a tutor and a TA. So I would go into classrooms, and I was assigned freshman classrooms specifically to be in there every week to help them with their essay structures and things like that. But also you could stop in and do a sit-in where you and I would sit across from each other for 30 minutes, and you'd kind of give me a rundown on what you need help with in your essay, and then we'd read it together and do XYZ. But the way that my training worked was very collaborative, and I think that's really important, especially working with college students, because in high school, a lot of it is meeting the curriculum. You know, you're checking those boxes. Unfortunately, teachers are pushed to that extent where they really can't get passionate about it anymore. It's just making sure that they're crossing their T's and dotting their I's.
Right.
And in college, it's not like that. It's very open-based, and it's very influenced by student and teacher work together. So I got a lot of good training on how to sit down with somebody and read their paper and say, well, what do you think should be different?
Right.
Why do you think that? Oh, well, here's this. Why don't we try something this way to make this feel better? And it was very like guiding them through editing their own papers. And I think it's something that almost every college student should go through, because I wasn't just giving you the right answer. And I think that's what a lot of students came to me for, was the right answer, or me being like, you need to do this and this will be perfect. And it wasn't that. It was, why do you feel that your paper is not to the standards? I don't want to hear that your professor said so. That's fine, but what did your professor say, and in what instances are you recognizing your professor's comments? So I think that constructive criticism in general just needs to be attacked earlier as kids, and I think that it would stop hurting a lot of people's feelings if we like did it earlier in high school.
Yeah.
And kind of talked about how common and actually beneficial it is, but unfortunately there's not all the time in the world that we wish there was. So
yeah.
I know it's hard, and I don't want to say that I think it's easy to implement, but I think it could be really, really beneficial for a lot of students.
Right. Even like when it comes to public speaking in high school, I feel like that was never really taught. It was just like, okay, you need to do this. It's got to be this long and go. And like, that was it. You never were really taught how to get up in front of a class. Like, I remember the first time I got up, I was in Mr. Mead's class, which...
Oh my goodness, Mr.
Like,
Mead.
and we did... what was it? It was like the Lord of the Flies, like, speech where you had to write out all those freaking cards that were like 50 different cards, and then he could pick whatever one he wanted, and then you had to go up and talk for like 3 minutes. And I had never talked in front of a class before, and I have social anxiety, so I got up on the stage. I was up there for a minute and 30 seconds. Was supposed to be up there for 3 minutes. Minute and 30 seconds.
You said, I'm done. I gotta go.
Yeah. No, I talked so fast, and when I got done, I had 3 people come up to me and ask me if I was okay because I was shaking so visibly on the stand.
Yeah.
And that is just, unfortunately, I feel like there's no reason to push students to that extent for public speaking in general. Okay, we need to stop marking down people for nervousness, stop marking people down for shaking, stop marking people down for stuttering. We are normal human beings, and we're not expected to be a robot standing in front of a bunch of people doing something perfectly, especially at the age of 15. I don't know who thought that was like the ideal time to force students to do something like that.
And for the first time too.
And it's like, you could at least give us like pointers on like what we should be doing when we get up there, or
no training, no nothing.
Yeah. And the time limits, because you would get graded down if you didn't get the time. And it's like, I speak fast in general, like just in my normal pace. And for instance, like our senior projects that we had to do, you had to get 10 minutes, but I speak fast, but I got everything that was required in the rubric or whatever within 8 minutes, but I got graded down because I didn't get the full 10. And it's like, I still made all the same points and got to the point that I was supposed to.
Ooh, I froze.
So what does it matter if I didn't get the full 2 minutes, you know? Like the full extra 2 minutes. So it was just like super annoying too.
I'm so anti senior projects too, just to throw that in, because I think it's unfairly decided what is the correct criteria. Whereas like you're saying, you talk fast, you don't like to be at the front of a group, you have social anxiety. So why are we forcing you to do something like that? Whereas personally, I love that kind of atmosphere. I love being in front of a crowd. I love talking. I love that kind of engagement. And it's not really fair that just because that naturally comes to me more than it does for some other people, that I'm getting the upper advantage. That just doesn't seem fair to me.
It's not fair. Like,
no, it's different personalities.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Completely.
Like, one of my best friends, like, in high school, every time we had like a public speaking project, he would just take the L on it and wouldn't do it because he was so afraid of getting up in he'd rather fail the class than get up and speak. And like, that's not fair for some people. And like, I personally think like public speaking's a very important skill to have, but again, like not everybody's going to be doing public speaking, you know, like most people don't public speak in their entire life for any position that they have, right?
And like forced public speaking. That was my whole issue, is forcing people into it is no doubt going to not create a bad presenter. Like, you're not going to get better until you practice, no doubt. But if somebody knows that is not their thing, that's okay. They don't need to be forced into it, because then they're just going to get graded badly anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
And I feel like on top of that, like when you're presenting on something that maybe you don't have an interest in, like an English class, when you're presenting on something.
How are you supposed to give a 10-minute speech on something you don't care about?
Because like in my college classes, I had to do speeches or like get up in front of the class and do public speaking, and I was fine, but it was because I was interested in what I was talking about. So it was easier, and I knew that everybody else in the class was also interested in what I was talking about. So
and
they
just
understood.
your confidence, because you had been given the proper tools to understand what it feels like. If you're confident up there, it changes your whole game of public speaking.
Completely.
Certain things to make you confident that people can tell you to help you better present yourself, just to feel more comfortable. It's all about comfortability. If you're comfortable up there, then it'll be okay. But being forced up there is never going to make you comfortable.
Never, no.
Yeah.
And it will always be a negative experience too. Like
Yes.
you're just like negatively reinforcing like, oh man, I hate public speaking. It's so nerve wracking.
Yeah.
Like, and they just don't really ease you into it. Cause that was my first memory too of public speaking was Mr. Mead's class doing Lord of the Flies. And like,
and no shade to Mr. Mead. Mr. Mead's funny. Like, he's a good teacher.
He was the best.
He was a great teacher.
He was a scary guy.
It was 10th grade. I think everybody had to do it in 10th grade.
Yeah.
Because I had somebody else, but I had to do that same project.
Yeah. And it's just like, Mr. Mead is just kind of an intimidating guy. He's a nice, fun teacher, but like, he shot
also
people's
shoots,
papers.
Yeah, he shoots essays. Yeah, he also does that.
I don't know.
Oh yeah, I remember he got mad and he just like threw a pile of our papers across the room and like ripped some up and he's like, these are garbage. And I was like, yo.
He deserves to be in a college placement. I think that is where his mind
he'd be a
I don't
great
know
college
why
professor.
he thought that high school was made for him, but I was far too early to understand any of the things he was saying and the passion he had for that classroom. I just didn't get it.
Exactly. I think him and I don't know if either one of you had Mr. Place when you were in high school, but him and Mr. Place
I didn't
are
have
very,
him, but I know him.
Very much the same.
Yeah,
they
I did
both
have
would
Mr.
be like
Place.
really good college professors, I think.
They should both do that then. That would be more their style.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But there's so many things that should be changed about high schools, and we could probably talk about that for hours if we wanted to.
I was going to say, I could probably talk about that for 6 hours.
Yeah.
So that's like one of my passions that I've gained through some of my classes is talking about high school curriculum and the focus on core and the devaluation of the arts. And I even did a whole research project on press in high school. And I talked about how Mrs. Bunka was so encouraging, and she was one of the only people that I had met at that age that cared about young people being involved in the media. She was one of the only people I ever knew that and would go above and beyond to make sure that we knew that and were provided the training to do so. Yeah. And it was just mind-blowing because not many schools have that same opportunity. No. And I think the same with Mr. Ashley. Mr. Ashley going above and beyond with the whole wilderness thing that he would do. And then
Team
eventually
Reptile.
did the TV channel. Like, they both were two of the most passionate teachers I have ever seen. Yeah. And we were lucky to both have them in Fenton High School, but most places don't have that.
Yeah,
No,
we
they
were
don't.
really lucky with, like, I think all of our arts teachers. I never had anybody except for Mrs. Bunka and Mr. Ashley, but I heard, like, our regular arts teacher was...
And Mrs. Jewell. People really liked Mrs.
Yeah,
Jewell.
Yeah, Mrs. Jewell was cool.
I didn't have them, but they would rave about her.
Yeah, so I think we got really lucky in that aspect. But my thing is, like, there are high schools that are arts focused and all you do is arts, and I just don't understand why they're like those specific high schools are able to get degrees that are considered like, you know, a regular school high school degree, whereas like every other high school has this core curriculum that we have to follow. It just doesn't make sense to me.
It's weird. I don't understand it either. I have no idea. To me, those specialized schools must be set up more of like a college curriculum, whereas they have like crossovers. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Which is just, it's mind blowing that not all high schools are kind of like that, and that you could like specialize in. That's hard to say because a lot of people don't know who they are by the time they're in high school.
Right.
You know, it takes that trial period, but if you know, then I definitely think you should have the opportunity to express that and
and I think having those classes in high school helps you know earlier because you know what you like and you don't like.
Definitely.
And but we're going downhill on that one.
I love it though. I love it. I'm into it.
So when you were going into your freshman year, did you do a randomized roommate or did you pick a friend?
So luckily, my best friend of 10 years now, Kylie Harris, was my freshman roommate, and we were a little nervous going into it because you hear those horror stories about best friends that room together, and
end up hating
her
each
and
other.
I had spent literally any waking moment we could in high school together, and it traveled back to middle school, and we had never had a fight, an altercation. We had never gotten upset with each other. Like, it was just very clear cut that we were, we could handle something like this, but it was also fearful because you never know, and you never want to lose your best friend.
Yeah.
So luckily I had her, but we did sign up for a suite style, which meant that we got 2 other roommates.
Right.
And they had their own room, but we all shared a bathroom. So in the midst of that, we met 2 girls named Chase and Madison, and we became pretty good friends with them. But Madison actually started becoming like one of our tight-knit, like close to heart best friends. And it's so funny because when we first met her, we did not like her. Like, she's the kindest, sweetest soul now that I know her, but when you first meet her, she's very intimidating, and she is very sure of herself, so it can be a little off-putting. Especially Kylie and I are much more laid back, kind of go with the flow people, so when we first met her, we were really like, this girl's just not our style, don't know about it, but we'll figure it out. And as time went on, the 3 of us are the 3 most random people that you would ever put into a friendship group, but we're like inseparable now. I still live with both of them 4 years later and like thrive on our friendship. We have matching tattoos.
Oh my
we
gosh.
do big trips together.
Oh, that's awesome.
And through that, we met a few of our other best friends that now ended up with me living in a house with 5 other girls, which is like so much fun. It's so much fun, and it's a once-in-a-lifetime kind of opportunity in downtown Grand Rapids, living with your 5 best friends.
Yeah.
And it didn't seem like it then, but I was literally meeting, like, my friends for a lifetime. I could never imagine, like, letting them go in the slightest bit. And 2 of them, one of them's Kylie Harris, so my roommate from the beginning, and the second one is Emma Flannery, and she didn't end up being our roommate until our sophomore year. And we were all really good friends in high school. We had known each other in Fenton, but not as tight-knit. And now she would 100% be in my bridesmaid party if I were to get married right now. Like, she would be at the top of my list.
Aww.
And we never had that friendship in high school. We never knew it was possible. So just to get that friendship through college was something really special. And to then additionally get 3 more best friends was just like cherry on top. So I have this perfect balance of new best friends and comfortable best friends that I've had for some time. And I think it opened a lot of doors to new people, but also really made me feel comfortable going into college.
So I feel like you're really lucky because I feel like you have so many like tight-knit friends that you've been friends with since high school that you're still friends with to this day, which not everybody has that experience. I feel like there's normally like one group every senior year that ends up being friends like through the college and stuff and continue to see each other. And you happen to be one of those people that got to have like those good friends that are like tight-knit and go with you through everything.
I think it's a blessing, but it's also, I don't want to say a curse. I mean, I love my friends that I've kept for this long, and it's really important. But also, especially these last 2 years, our junior and senior year of college. So we had all turned 21. We had all moved into different houses. We were paying bills. We were looking for the future. There was a weird point in all of our lives where, like, my main friend group from high school, we didn't know how to be friends from afar, if that makes sense.
Right.
We were also good at being friends when we were close in proximity and could see each other and had the same lifestyles going on. But as you get older, it took us a long time to understand that we can, like, evolve our friendship through it, and that it doesn't have to be the same as it was, but it can still be just as good, if that makes sense. It definitely took a lot of trial and error and a lot of weird, almost stepping on eggshells. We never really knew how to talk about the fact that I had a lot of friends still in Fenton, but I also had a lot of friends from Fenton that were with me in Grand Rapids.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a barrier that I had to get through to understand that as I kept making more friends, it didn't mean that I had to lose my old friends, but that my old friends and I would just have a different style of friendship than my new friends were, because I was seeing them every day. I could make plans with them. They could come over to my house. It was definitely an interesting time, but I think it made me be a better friend and learn a lot about what friendship should be and how you can do a lot through friendship, and it doesn't have to be so picture perfect all the time, and it can still be an awesome friendship.
Yeah. Do you feel like because you went into college with all these people that you did know before, that it hindered you from when you first got there making new friends because you were always maybe with those older friends that you've had?
So at first, I definitely was a little bit afraid of that, because when I first moved into the dorms, Kylie was the only person from Fenton that I was super close with, that I was really spending time with, but also we had been best friends for this many years, and it was really nerve-wracking knowing that I could easily just run off with my best friend every time. Like, right. I didn't need to go out and make new friends if I wanted to, but that's just not really how I work. I'm a very,
outgoing.
I like to meet new people, yeah, and I think that it gave me the comfort that when I was scared of the fact that I was far away from home and in this new world, she brought me comfort, but also I met most of the people that I stay in contact with now, through being at school and through my jobs and through volunteer opportunities. I got very lucky to have this balance that I have. And at first I was scared that it was holding me back almost, especially because at that time I had a boyfriend who was back in Fenton. Mm-hmm. So that was also very hindering and very do I go back to Fenton all the time? Does he come here? It was a balancing act, and there was a lot going on and changing in life.
Right.
But I think in the end, it didn't hold me back because I didn't let it. I definitely wanted to explore and find my own ways to go about meeting new people and having these new experiences. Yeah. And I always say that while my roommates now are a little tight-knit, knit six, that's my home base. That's my forever. That's my break down and cry, laugh till I can't breathe group. Yeah. But I have all these branches that kind of lead off of that, that we're all so good about going and being with other people and then coming home and being together that it feels like it's such a fulfillment. I am very lucky. I feel very blessed for having this experience, because a lot of people don't. And I think it has given me more friendships than I could have ever imagined.
Right. I feel like all three of us have a very different experience, because I went to community college, and Anthony, he went to Eastern, but none of your friends that you went to school with went. Well, one of them did.
Okay, so for me at Eastern, 3 other people from Fenton that I knew ended up going to Eastern with me, and it's funny because only 2 of those, one of those people was one of my close friends. And then because we were all from Fenton, we kind of clicked up, and we were all in the same dorm building too. So, which I don't know how that happened. That was super random.
That's crazy.
Yeah. They actually all ended up dropping out the first semester.
Oh, so you were just thrown into it.
Yeah. So I just made friends with, whoever knew people. And some of those people even dropped out. So my friend groups changed a lot over the course of the years of my years at Eastern. And then probably by my sophomore year, that was when I had a solid, specific,
the people you wanted to be around, the people that you were craving to be with, I guess.
Right. And so it was really weird, because it was I learned to bond with all these people, and then all of a sudden they're gone, and I was like, okay, well, what do I do now? It's the second semester, I'm all alone. And it ended up working out, because the people I am friends with now, so amazing. And then one of my best friends from Fenton we became even closer now. We got him to move down to Ypsilanti. He didn't end up going to Eastern, but my friend Matt like lives right down the street, and he's like my main friend group now. But it's kind of like the same thing. All the people I did meet in college after senior year, like once we all graduated, like one of them went to New York. The other friend went to Denver. You know, I had a friend, he just straight up joined the army out of nowhere. And we're like,
you're like, oh, okay.
I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. And then, yeah, so it was weird. So my experience is definitely a lot different, but.
And your roommate, your freshman year roommate.
Oh, my freshman year roommate.
Did you have a nightmare of a roommate?
They were like two completely different people.
Oh, no.
We were like the same. You know, like, because we're like both nerdy. We both really like video games, but he was a brony.
Do you know what that is?
You explain what you think it is, and I'm going to tell you what I think it is.
It's a guy who likes My Little Pony, but it's like it's an unhealthy obsession.
I didn't know if that's what you were talking about. I'm like, there's no way. There's no way. But
yeah,
there's no way.
They're real. They exist.
I love that. Well, that was probably an interesting, eye-opening experience.
No, it was scary. Well, okay, he is cool. Like, I'm not gonna.
Nice. He was a really nice kid.
No, he wasn't.
He wasn't?
He was so judgmental. And like,
never mind.
Because like I would go out with my friends and I would party and do all that stuff. And then I'd literally walk into the room. And like, obviously he was joking, but I'd walk into the room like maybe like a little bit tipsy or something. And he'd be like, oh, what are you doing? Being a degenerate again? And I'm like, because he didn't
I'm just trying to have a good time. I'm not calling you names for your shit.
Right. Yeah. Like, well, and eventually I did start calling him because like he never left the room. You know, like barely. He didn't like really make friends that he would hang out with all the time. You know, he'd just sit in there and like play video games or do his homework and stuff, and like never leave.
I think is fine. But why are you going to a university college where you live in a dorm?
Right.
If you're not into that experience, that is fine. But own it and do what's best for you, because being in that situation probably isn't what he necessarily would have dreamed of doing, you know? So
no, absolutely not.
Or at least like don't rag on other people for doing the college experience.
Yeah, and I would invite him all the time too, and like he just wouldn't do it. But it was weird. It was just weird too, because I was like, there was My Little Pony like figurines in my room, in my dorm room. There was My Little Pony posters on the wall. Like, I never invited people over to my room, right? Like, because I didn't want them to be, because he was always there, first of all. And
you didn't want to make him feel uncomfortable because you're just a genuine human being. You didn't want to bring people in there and then be like, what the fuck is this?
Right. Like, I didn't want to make him uncomfortable by like my friend's judgment, or like, and I knew he wouldn't like all the people in the room and stuff, but it was all, it was weird because like the girls I was seeing at the time, like, how do you explain like bringing someone back to your dorm room and like there's a giant like
My Little Pony
Rainbow Dash pony on the freaking corner of his desk or something. I don't know.
I don't know what I would do. I think I would be intrigued that I would have to ask questions, which would probably then like irritate him because he wasn't so into the conversation. But I'd be like, I need some background information, my friend. I need to know what's happening here.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a little too interested in this right now. What is going on?
And that's exactly why I didn't bring people over, because that is the conversation that would be had every time someone was in my room. They would just ask him straight up, like, yo, what's this about? And I don't know. He'd defend it and be like, yeah, My Little Pony has like great writing and a great story to it. And I'm like, you're a grown ass man. And like, there was a brony club on campus.
So there were multiple.
Yeah, so there's a lot. Yeah, like it was a pretty big club. So
hopefully they're all living together and just doing
living their best life. I hope so. It was it was an interesting time.
A lot.
I feel like your freshman year was just, the stories you told me about it were just.
Freshman year was probably like the most wild thing I've ever experienced. Like, Because
it's a defining time for sure.
Yeah. And I went into like the roommate thing blind, so that's how I got paired with him.
Oh.
But like, yeah, if I had to go back, I probably wouldn't go in blind, but because we'd talked on the phone and I just thought he just sounded nerdy, so I was like, cool, like he's gonna be nerdy, I'm a nerd, like we're gonna vibe. And then got there and it was like, whoa,
you're like,
culture
can't
shock,
vibe over My Little
man.
Pony though. Can't vibe over that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely a wild year. That was like one of those things that you like look back on and I was like, did that whole year even happen? Because it was just...
Is that in a book or is that me? Like, I can't remember.
Like, I don't know. Like, because it was like the most magical year, like, because of all the experiences I had with like all the friends that I made. And then like he was like a little like my roommate was like a fever dream. Like, you're not like, did I actually experience that?
That's the perfect way to describe it.
Right. And then like, again, like I'd go back and have like a great experience. Like, got to see Chance the Rapper came to Eastern.
Oh yeah, he did that year, didn't he?
Yeah, that was my freshman year. And so like it was the most magical thing ever.
Wait, where did he perform?
He played at the Convocation Center, which is our basketball stadium.
Did they do like a free concert for the students kind of thing, or did you guys have to pay for it?
It was a discounted concert for the students if you got tickets to be in the side stands. And I'm not one of those suckers. I have to, if I go to a show, I have to be like, it's got to be general admission. I have to be on the floor. I have to be able to get as close as possible if I want to.
Me too.
And it Travis Scott opened. And this was before Travis, right? This was before Travis Scott is.
I have to tell you something crazy after this. I have to tell you something crazy after this. Keep going.
Yeah,
but don't let me forget.
And that was Travis Scott was probably the hypest show I've ever seen. Like, I've seen Waka Flocka before, and like Waka Flocka gets the crowd hype, but like Travis Scott had the whole crowd moshing. I'm like, who is Travis Scott? I've never even heard of this guy.
Who is this man?
And like, everybody's jumping up and down, going crazy. And then Chance the Rapper came on, and it was just like all my really good friends from Fenton came down because they all love Chance the Rapper too. So we were all together for it. And I was like, the crazy experience. And then I go back to my dorm room later and like my roommate's like,
you're like, oh, that's right.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay, back to Fever Dream.
I missed this spot. Thank you for letting me come home like this. But my crazy thing is that I saw Chance the Rapper and Travis Scott that same year too, in different times and in different locations. But that was right as Coloring Book came out, right, for Chance the Rapper?
It was like, yeah, right before the Coloring Book came out.
Okay, I saw him during his Coloring Book tour, so I guess it was after, but I had also seen Travis Scott in a pop-up concert that he did in the middle of Detroit in an abandoned warehouse. He posted it 7 hours before the concert and was like, hurry up, buy tickets before they sell out.
I feel like those are the best concerts though, because like
it was the craziest concert I've ever been to. It was so much fun. It was a riot. The craziest crowd I've ever been in, probably, but
definitely.
It was a little fearful for me because I was with my boyfriend at the time and we were very close to the front stage, and I looked around and I know this shouldn't have scared me, but I was the only girl that I could see for like rows and rows and nobody else. And it wasn't the fact that I was the only girl, but that the boys weren't expecting to have girls in there. So I was getting pushed and shoved like a boy.
Right.
And I didn't want to mosh. I was like, this is very new to me. I'm very like nervous about this.
Right.
Yeah.
I was getting thrown to the ground. I'm like, I gotta get out of here.
Yeah.
This crowd is crazy.
And
but
that's how the Travis
fun.
Scott concert is too. Like, I was like, I've never seen a crowd so hype in my life. Like, everybody was moshing. It was insane. Like,
and it's not the like shove fun. It's the like jump off each other. Yeah, that kind
they
of
were jumping off of each other. Like,
yes.
I was like in the middle of the crowd at that concert, and it looked like when a crowd does the wave, that's what it looked like, because people were literally propelling themselves off the shoulders of each other, like just getting so hyped, so rowdy. And I'm like, this is wild. I can't even imagine being in the front. And you were on the rail for that?
Oh, no. Heck no, I couldn't make it that far. I was trying to get up there until I realized what was happening.
Yeah,
and I was
no
like,
way.
I cannot.
You were like, abort mission.
Yeah, I cannot. And I was a pretty big Travis fan, like, back then, so I was really excited to be there. That's what kind of, like, hurt my ego while I was there. I was like, dang, all these guys get to get hype like this and enjoy the show. I'm like, I need to get bigger.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, that's so funny. I remember looking at your guys' talking points, and I want to say just a little bit about the state of news media before we head off, but because I have some things I'd like to say.
Yeah,
that I think is important
that
you
was
guys
something I wanted to
vibe
ask
with.
you.
Yeah, so I guess I'll kind of just start talking about like what I was thinking about when I saw that one of the talking points being the state of news media right now, and like what a wild time to be a part of the media craze. Am I right? Like,
Right.
it's nuts. It's really unfortunate, I think, personally. I don't know if I can say this on here, but if you watch the news, more than likely you're watching complete bullshit and lies, unfortunately.
No, I agree.
We were talking about that on our last podcast. We were like, you can't trust it.
No, and that's what's so sad is because a lot of people going into my industry right now are going to be that next wave of those people. And like, I think a lot of times, like, before someone knows me, they might quickly group me into that, thinking that's like really what I want to do. And it's disheartening because we have this beautiful practice of journalism that I've learned and maintained. And the fact that that's the stigma and the representation it gets is just like sickening. And it's really, really sad and embarrassing. It's pretty embarrassing that these people are willing to go to this extent to literally convince people to think the way they think because they think that it's the most important. So I always like to say that if you're ever having an opinion, an argument, a debate, a conversation, and you think that justifying your data, your claims, anything based off of one source,
right?
Like you're irrelevant to me. I'm sorry. What you're saying, especially if you quote some extreme biased source, like I can't take you seriously. And the fact that a lot of people don't even realize that they're consuming media that is so biased and so framed one way. It's like you can't even blame these people half the time because they don't realize how messed up the media. Yeah, they don't realize how messed up and how one-sided their media consumption is. And no wonder they think the way they do and have the opinions that they do is because all the media they're consuming is telling them that that's correct, and they're not willing to go the extra mile to ensure that it's right. So I always say that more people need to read neutral sources. It's very easy to figure out what kind of bias a news station or publication has. There's this website called allsides.com, and that's just my personal favorite for media bias. And what it does is it takes a bunch of the major publications and puts them on a map so that you can visually understand sources that might be politically neutral, politically left, or politically right. And this goes into a lot deeper than just political news, but the way they present information, the things that they care about, the kind of data they consume, and the way they present that data. So just like a couple favorites of mine are AP News. That's always a guaranteed go-to. You're going to be receiving factual information, and it's not going to be trying to lean you one way or another. It's going to be, hey, this is what happened. These are the basics. Same thing with NPR News. I think everybody just needs a little NPR in their life.
NPR is good for the soul. It's wholesome.
They have so many different categories and segments, like, and you can just like I would put my life on the line for NPR. That's how much I love NPR.
Yeah.
And the BBC is good as well. I don't get as much into that as NPR and AP, but that is kind of what I really strive, and I hope that people start listening to or reading a lot more is those neutral sources. And I hope people who are dedicated to their beliefs and their opinions and their news stations realize the problematics of that and how unreliable their information is if they only believe one side of the spectrum and aren't willing to compare it to the other side. So if you, for instance, are a Fox News watcher, you're obviously already getting very lenient right information in news.
Right.
I think it's always a good idea to go find an extreme leftist publication on that same issue to compare what they're saying and see where the actual facts align versus the opinion. Because if you take two pieces of publication about the same thing and they're completely different, that shows you that there is extreme bias in it. And you can kind of pinpoint what is actually useful and what is actually true. I think media literacy in general is just so it's pleading for anybody to start understanding how to consume information and make sure that what you're understanding is actually correct. And it's scary how much power the media has and how much illiterate media consumption we have. That a lot of people don't really know what they're consuming. They just know that they're consuming it. Yeah.
Right. Well, it's like exactly your point. Like, people don't know any better about it. Like, I feel like I'm a communication major. Like, I graduated with a communication degree, and I took journalism classes, persuasion classes, like rhetoric classes, like, I feel like unless you have learned that stuff, like learned about journalism and learned about how communication works and like the persuasive devices that these media companies use, like, you really don't know any better. You think that they are just giving you the straight facts because it does something emotionally in your brain, and you're like, yeah, I can kind of get with that, right? But it's not really the case, right? Like, people flock and don't really do the research. They just flock to whatever makes them feel good and reinforces whatever they've made up in their mind. But
it makes them feel comfortable, and that's what's sad is that how do you feel comfortable consuming information? It should make you feel uncomfortable, and it should make you ask questions, and it should make you dig deeper. And
right.
I don't know how people take things at face value. And it's probably through my training and my time learning all of that stuff.
It's definitely, I think it's a training. Yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, it's hard to blame the people that are doing it because they don't realize they're doing it because it's so ingrained in our normal days in our society to just,
right.
They think that that's reality, and it's not reality. A lot of the information we're consuming is entirely skewed one way, I suppose.
And I feel like, too, if like people who speak out about that kind of stuff now, like speak out against, the media putting their opinion into things and trying to get people what to think. Like, when you speak out about that, the media then turns around and say, well, you're trying to get rid of free speech and all this stuff. And it's
so hard right now with the internet, too. Like, the internet completely changed, like, my industry and so many other industries, but the whole idea of citizen journalism, which is basically just like freelance, anybody can be a writer, anybody can report, anybody can do whatever they want, basically.
Yeah.
Kind of changed a lot of things for us because there's this whole trust process that is totally like, it's like blanketed over. Like, people just trust anybody that they think are providing good information to make themselves feel good and make themselves feel comfortable. And it's sad how much people trust anybody they think with a title or with a job, which how are we supposed to battle that? We've been trained to believe that those are the things that we need to believe and the people that we respect, but in reality it's just people with power. So it gets scary, and I think that social media actually opened and closed a lot of doors for journalism, opening as in covering interesting topics that not a lot of mainstream media give attention to because it doesn't please their agenda. It doesn't do what they need it to do. So things like, I don't know if you guys have ever looked at Shit You Should Care About. It's an Instagram page, or So You Want to Talk About. I highly recommend those. They're just easy to digest, graphic-based news posts that aren't necessarily mainstream media, that open your eyes to a lot of information that you probably didn't even know existed in the world. Some similar things with like NPR's podcast, Consider This, or there's The Economist does Economist Radio that does a really nice like digestion of news that is like, hey, here's this information, here's how you should like take it in without being pressured from all these other outside forces. And there's also another one called You're Wrong About. Have you guys ever heard of that podcast?
No.
Oh my gosh, you guys should listen to it. Like I said, it's called You're Wrong About. And what it does is it takes these phenomenons or these events or these trends that we've all heard about in the news and the media and talks about how the media portrayed it to influence the public's opinion, thought process, and everything like that, and basically how they got it wrong, and about how the media kind of just put their own blanket over it. Yeah, they just wrote their whole entire narrative when this is actually what happened, and they break it down about how news segments did that and how other aspects of life kind of portrayed into it, but it's really, really interesting. And the first episode is about like the daycares back in the 1980s, about how there was a bunch of daycares doing like satanic rituals and like giving these children up for money or something like that. But it leads into the Illuminati and the power of like persuasion and the power of being a big company and controlling media. How much you really can phrase what reality looks like in a society. So I highly recommend those as well.
You're like a fountain of information.
Thank you.
The facts.
I try to be. I'm always trying to get more, though. So if anybody else has anything you guys like that, I would definitely be into it.
Yeah. Leave a comment on our Instagram if you're listening to this and have any sources.
Yes.
So Hannah can check them out and we can check them out too.
Yeah.
I'm glad you guys let me say that. But that's basically kind of what I just wanted to touch about the state of news media, is that don't question everything, research everything, don't trust anything or anyone until you know you can.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Just be smart.
And even still, like, don't favor one
side.
Like, if you're one of those people that like only watches Fox News, only watches CNN, only watches MSNBC, like, don't
let's just break the dual party foundation of this
right.
setup
Just
too. Like,
branch
come on.
out, because you really can't, like, I don't know what people expect. We've known, I feel like people have this conversation that, CNN is giving you wrong news and Fox News is giving you wrong news. And like, we've been talking about this for years and years, but okay.
They're still the most two dominated
get rid of it.
Masses.
Change your news sources, right? Like, those are still the ones that people flock to. And it drives me nuts, man.
It drives me nuts too. And even going further beyond bias, you can start talking about unreliable information that a lot of these big mainstream media corporations that are more one way or the other present information just to favor themselves, and it's like not even true information, and they'll come out and be like, yeah, we were wrong, and people still trust them to their heart. I'm like, what? I just told you that they lied to you and you're okay with it.
Right. Like, only the media could get away with that. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Right. Anybody else that would lie to your face and then tell you, yeah, I lied to you, you'd be pissed, right? Like, but I don't know.
Exactly. I hope that there is a wave of people who see that, and that our generation kind of helps defeat that lying in the news and the whole two-party system, and
right.
the fact that the media controls so much of the power in the United States. I just hope that a lot of people start learning, start listening, start researching, just be passionate about it. It's interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
This is our future, is the future we are talking about, right? So.
And uncovering our past, like learning all the things that we were so used to and just accepted as kids. We're now like, whoa.
Yeah. We're like, shouldn't have done that.
That's not right.
All right. Well, Hannah, thank you for joining us today and spewing some information for us and telling us about your life. And thank everybody else for listening and sharing the podcast with your friends also. And remember to check us out over on Instagram at Overboard X Podcast. That's Overboard, the letter X Podcast. And we will see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
We'll get to steadier waters eventually.